Welcome to the Carpool Chat, the commute that no one asked for. I'm Representative Sarah Stalker, and I'm joined in the studio today by Representative Rachel Roarx and Representative Tina Bojanowski. We are three legislators who travel from Louisville to Frankfort each week together, and we thought it would be fun to let you in on some of the conversations that we have in our commutes back and forth. So jumping right in, ladies, we are at day 46 of a 60-day session, so it's getting real. It's getting real contentious some days, it's getting really stressful some days, it's getting a reel of a lot of things. And so something that I want to just address right out of the gate is like balancing all of this heaviness during a session. And we were talking about shows, like things that we could, watch and what have you. And Tina, I suggested that you guys watch Jury Duty because you had not seen it, and it's a good laugh out loud. Yes. I saw it with my husband, and then we actually started rewatching it again with our kids. But tell me what your experience was.
I started watching last night, and I don't think I've laughed out loud at a TV show as many times in my life. I mean, it just cracked me up. And there's one line that we'll appreciate as a teacher, and your bill on jury duty. So this teacher, so they're all trying to get out of jury duty at the beginning, and these are the actors, of course, and one guy stands up and says he has so many children that he has to take care of, and they're like, well, how many children do you have? And he says 36, and I just laughed so hard because, as a teacher, you do count them as your kids. And so, there were so many funny pieces in the show. We need to do that at a certain part of our day, is just to watch something that's just so silly, and you kind of, it gives you endorphins, and I think I slept the best that I had last night, because I had that kind of emotional break.
Yeah. So Rachel is going to have to jump into this because
before we give it all away.
Well, before that, but it's like, when two people are talking about something that they're watching, and the third person is like not in on it yet. Like, have we convinced you to watch it?
Oh yeah, no. This type of humor is definitely my thing. It's why I love Parks and Recreation so much. Like I will love it, and don't worry, you're not ruining anything for me. Like, I have to be convinced enough to watch something, so you're really selling it for me. So
good. And the premise, just for anybody who doesn't know, is this is a show where one individual is a real person. The rest of everybody else on this is an actual paid actor, but this gentleman thinks that he is participating in a real jury trial.
Yep.
And then at the same time that there is a documentary being made about the process of serving in jury duty. So
it's really clever.
It's very clever. There will be a second season that focuses on a different topic. And so I think that one's called Corporate Retreat. And so again, same concept. One person is a real person. Everybody else is an actor, and they don't realize it.
That sounds hilarious.
I'm glad we're getting some laughs in where we can, because around here it's difficult some days, right? So let's jump into a policy win. Tina, can we talk about your big win for this week?
So yesterday I had a bill pass on the House floor. It's House Bill 612, and it's my bill. I believe we've talked about it on the show before.
621, no?
612. 621.
I think there's 621. I know there's a lot of numbers.
I'm really tired.
It's day 46.
Day 46. 621 is my bill, right? You would think I'd know that. 621. So what it does is it locks in special education caseloads and class sizes. So there were some regulations that were proposed that would increase them, and it's really a concern for the servicing of our special ed students that we maintain caseloads as they are today. Now, someone asked me in committee, is there a research base that's the best number? And I said, according to my personal experiences, we should have much lower caseloads and class sizes. But I think that what I wanted to do with this legislation is just to ensure that they don't increase from what they are. So that passed unanimously, and now we've got to go on to the Senate. So hopefully it'll get through there.
Yes, it should.
Yes.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Well, I don't know. Not very many bills have passed the other chamber yet. And so I've been kind of tracking them, and very few bills, so we need to really watch. We don't have that many days left. And either things are going to happen really fast or they're not going to happen.
Yeah. Which either way is a problem for different reasons.
That's right.
Absolutely.
It could be.
Rachel, what about you? What have you been noticing from a policy perspective?
Well, today I had a bill, House Bill 72, that was actually given its first reading. So we've talked about that, kind of that your bill has to have so many readings before it can actually pass the House floor. So this is a bill that has to do with our Louisville Metro Code Enforcement officers and giving them the option to become part of hazardous duty retirement for CERS. And it's something that they've been fighting for many years, and it would kind of give it to the local jurisdiction, local control to the mayor to say, if this is something that it could be in the budget, if there is the budget for it, then it can happen. So I think it's an important bill. I've been working with a lot of stakeholders on it, and so hopefully we can get it heard in the local government committee. It was heard during the interim, and I would really like for it to be before the committee for a vote, and just continue to make progress on it.
Yep.
So that was an exciting update today, and
We'll take it. Yeah, that is, it's a good thing when you get to hang out on the floor because something's getting a reading, and you get to be excited about that. Well, I'll just throw this out there. It's not going to get any sort of reading, but I did file House Bill 817, and that was a bill specifically to stop the criminalization of pregnancy outcomes. So this is happening across the country, but also I believe, have had 3 separate incidents here just in Kentucky about individuals who are having miscarriages, finding themselves in the hospital, people being asked what has happened with the remains, people being detained while they're still receiving medical care. Really problematic. And so I gave just a little speech at a rally the other day that I was able to, that I was asked to speak at, and I just think that's an important bill because we also have legislation that some of our colleagues are filing to criminalize those outcomes, and so it's really important that we get away from that as fast as possible, and for people to realize that 1 in 4 women will have a miscarriage. Right. That's a really big number to that you just can't ignore. So it's important that we protect people in one of their most sensitive and private moments.
Did you know that March is Pregnancy Loss Awareness Month?
I did not know that. But when you think about the statistic that I just gave you, every woman knows somebody. I mean, even if you think you don't, you probably know somebody who's just never disclosed to you that they had a miscarriage. I know my mom had a miscarriage after my brother was born, but and then they tried again and they had a miscarriage, and then they were successful with that next go around and got me and my sister. So
at the same time.
At the same time. So. It's a pretty serious topic. But outside of that, can we talk a little bit about some of the reports that we hear during the interim, Rachel? Because that was something that you had mentioned that you were seeing kind of some positive traction and movement
that's
with.
right. So yes, actually, it's always a pleasant surprise when we hear so many reports from various stakeholders and partners and cabinets during the interim. And sometimes that's just what it is. We get a report, we get an update, and kind of life goes on.
But wait, tell people what the interim is if they don't know what the interim period is.
The interim is when we're not in session. So it's pretty much anything between when we in session in April,
well, it
all the way.
officially starts in June, though.
Officially.
Well, they usually don't start meetings until June.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But it technically starts when we're not in session, and the interim begins. So it goes to the end of the year in December, and then we come back in January for the regular session. So the regular session is January through April, and then beginning in April to December, the interim. So, it's one of those jokes about us being a part-time legislator. It's like, well, there's something going on all year. It's just our pay rate can vary depending on what time of year it is.
Right.
But we get these reports, and it's kind of a time for us to process what's going to be the bills that we're going to hear next session. And so there is a very large child welfare bill this year, HB 778, which you have a piece of that you worked on in that bill. And another part of it is about ingestion around hazardous, harmful substances that children are getting a hold of in the home.
Such as
THC. It could be chemicals. It could be it could be controlled substance, prescription drugs.
Well, and with a particular concern about some things that look like candy.
Right.
So somebody might have edibles and they look like candy, and kids are eating gummies, but they're not.
They're not
candy.
for them, and
Right.
they're not candy, and they're cookies or things like that. So there's a couple things that we're trying to do. We saw a rise in the child fatality review data, where children had died due to the ingestion of these harmful substances, or not age-appropriate substances, or illegal substances. And so essentially what's really important is to make sure that one, as a trusted adult in a home, is to make sure that those items are safe and secure and away from children, but also and that's something that the bill addresses, is around harsher penalties for when these things happen, because right now it's very laxed, and we need to make sure that we're actually taking this seriously, and that there are penalties for this kind of lack of regard for a child's well-being. And there are also protections for if it's accidental. So there's some good safeguards in there too, but this is something that we heard a lot during the interim, and it actually did work its way into a bill. And I really appreciated that, because I hate when I, hear a report that I'm like, but what are we doing?
Yeah, what are we doing?
That's
And
right.
this was a moment I was like, we've done something.
really good.
This is important.
Yeah, it is great when those things actually work their way into a piece of policy, and then we can get it across the complete finish line, right?
Right.
Because we'll pass something off the House floor, but then it still has to go to the Senate, and we need to make sure that they're that they're just as eager to get it across the finish line to the governor's desk. So let's talk about veto period. That is coming up. So again, today was day 46 of a 60-day session. Our veto period will start April the 2nd. And a veto period is 10 days. And what does that mean? That means we legislators all go back to our districts, and every bill that has passed both chambers goes to the governor's desk for either a signature to be signed into law, or for him to veto this.
Or he can just do nothing.
I was going to say, and there's a third way. So you want to talk about that, Tina?
Law. So if the governor, he can either sign or veto, or he can just do nothing, and then it becomes law after a certain number of days.
That's right.
Without the signature
Without
of the governor.
the signature, right?
And people are like, why? Why does that happen? And I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's because he doesn't have a strong stance on it one way or another. Maybe it's controversial, something that I don't understand. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know how frequently it happens, but it does.
I used to see it a lot at the local level too, because the mayor has a similar power in the local jurisdiction after the Metro Council passes ordinances. That the mayor also has that, like he can let something become law just without his signature.
Interesting.
I mean that's his decision. Just like we get a right to vote yes, no, or pass,
Right.
or abstain.
Right.
It's kind of the mayor or the governor's version of that.
Yeah. So then we come back. So we have this 10-day break, and then we will come back for the last 2 days of session. So that'll be April the 14th and the 15th. And when we come back, we are doing two things. We are re-voting on everything that the governor vetoed to say, are we going to uphold this veto, or are we going to override it? So that can get a little confusing for us sometimes when you're on the floor, like, wait a minute, you want to make sure you're voting the right way. And then there's other bills. If there's a bill that people don't care if the governor vetoes,
Right.
Tell me about that, Tina.
So a couple of different things.
'Cause we're
Let's
also
go
passing
back
other
a step
bills.
first. So before we go on the veto period, we have a period called a couple of days called concurrence.
Thank you.
And concurrence means you decide if the Senate made changes to a House bill, do we agree about that? And so lots of negotiations about, and we'll vote on concurrence, but then there will have been conversations beforehand. But then those 2 days are generally where we have some bills that lead to extensive debate.
Yes.
So because this is the last 2 days that they could potentially, that the chamber could veto, could override a governor's veto. So that concurrence, those are the days that we're in until oftentimes April 1st. We might be in until close to midnight.
Yes.
So
Yep.
we can't be in another day because that would create an extra day.
Yes.
However, we do still have a makeup day, and we have not, from the one day we missed, that hasn't been scheduled. So it's going to be interesting with an extra day floating in there, how they might end up using it. So that's concurrence. Those are really the longest days that we're generally in chambers.
Yes.
And we'll have a dinner break. I mean, it's long enough to do that. Okay, so then we come back on the 14th and 15th, and then that's when we can override vetoes. But you can also pass bills that you may not think that the governor would veto if it's really important, or sometimes it's a bill that they pass that they know that the governor might veto, and that there's just a reason that they decide to do that. So often the 14th and 15th aren't as long days as those last 2 days before the veto period are usually our longest days that we're in
And the bills
chamber.
aren't as contentious either.
Well, on
For the
March
most part?
31st and April 1st, or on the after the veto?
No, the 14th and the 15th.
Yeah,
is what
usually
I'm talking about.
usually
When we come
it's pretty
Yeah.
a lot of agreement about any bills that are proposed then. But there have been different times when we've had other legislation, and then the governor vetoes it, and then they don't have an option of overriding it. So if any bill is filed or passes the 14th or 15th, then the governor can veto it, and that veto holds.
Yeah. So people got to get in those important ones early
and
on.
the reason that the chamber can override gubernatorial vetoes is because there's a supermajority. So that's that phrase, supermajority. There are enough voters who could decide to override the governor's veto. If we had, I won't say that, never mind.
I think it's important. We can always override a governor's veto.
That's right.
You need enough votes to be able to do that, no matter what the circumstance is. So I think sometimes what I hear people say is like, oh, but how does it work in a supermajority state if you have a Democratic governor and a Republican, majority legislator? Like, does the Democratic governor actually have, a lot of power in the veto? So this is actually just a really political science question.
Yes, it
but the answer is, because of kind of the timing of things, and also that the role of the executive branch to have kind of their independent nature, it's still a very important process. So, just to even put something on the record, or if, a lot of times bills, sometimes the state gets asked if it's constitutional and there's a lawsuit about it. And so all these things contribute to the record. And so there are innate powers regardless of what the number makeup might be. So I think I get that question a lot from people who are just kind of confused, like, well, what good does it do a governor to override, to veto something if it can always be overridden based on the numbers? And it's like, well, these things actually could still make a difference regardless of that circumstance.
The governor writes a very comprehensive veto message that is then posted with the bill. So if you want to understand, and there could be some unforeseen consequences of a specific bill. So that's always an interesting thing to read through.
Yes, absolutely. And this is a good point, because a lot of times what the average person at home is hearing maybe on the 6 o'clock news or the 10 o'clock news, is House bill or Senate bill this, passed today. And they don't necessarily know like where they, if you're not really following where they are in the process, or the same thing, Governor Beshear vetoed this bill, and then they think, oh, well, that's good. I'm glad, and it's like, nope.
It just could depend on where it is in the process.
Yeah, it depends on where it is in the process. So that being said, we'll wrap up our policy. I want to talk about some things that are also just making us happy. This is such a weird time of the year, because when we start session, we've talked about it's like dark. It's cold, but yet we have
time change.
We have energy because we haven't been completely worn down by everything yet. And then we get this late into the process. Now we have sunshine. We have abnormally warm days, which is fantastic. But we're running really low on energy.
Very
but
true.
it's good that we have the sunshine, because I think that does kind of perk us up.
I like to say that people think that like you get to hibernate in the winter, but it's opposite for us. Like I'll hibernate for a few weeks come April and May, and like nobody talk to me. Right. I need to recharge.
But there are some things that are kind of perking us up. For you, Rachel, you were talking about something called Fruit Riot.
Fruit Riot.
What is
my
it?
gosh. It is fruit that then gets like doused in lemon juice, and then gets a
Like
sour.
whole pieces of fruit?
Oh yes,
Okay.
little chunks of
They're
mango,
chunks.
or I guess there's different flavors, different kinds of fruit that's used. But then they put a sour coating on it, and I didn't realize this about my husband, but he loves sour candy. And you'd think that for someone who has been with their partner since we were literally children, that you would know that they like sour candy.
Yeah.
Now, didn't know that.
That really weirded me out.
Now we like will literally be like, can we get a little sweet little treat at the end of the night? And we go to the fridge and we pull out the Fruit Riot. And he's just sitting there like pouring the stuff into his mouth. And I'm like, no, I'm gonna need a little piece. And then my eye will like squinch and I'm just like, oh my gosh, it's cold and it's sour. And he's just like not affected. And he tried to have like a really big chunk one day and he put that whole thing in his mouth. I was like, how are you?
Oh.
And he's like, I can do it. Just like, so this has been giving us lots of laughs and obviously a little bit of sugar at the end of the night too.
Goodness.
Yeah. What about you, Tina? What's brightening up your day?
My daffodils are blooming.
Yeah.
I mean, that is just so exciting. And each year I try to dig out some of them that have been around a long time, and then I have more bulbs that I put in. And so I'm kind of running out of places to put them, so I give some away.
Yeah.
But all of the ones I planted last year are coming up, and it's just very lovely.
Oh,
That's great. Well, for me, it's thrifting. That is a way that I like decompress. I hit up some estate sales, found some interesting, pieces of jewelry, things like that. But that is kind of how I can kind of decompress. Though I do like to see things in bloom. And I do like sweet treats, but I've not tried Fruit Riot. Okay, well, that is going to be it for today. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Carpool Chat and hope you tune in next week to hear what else has unraveled here in Frankfurt. Have a great week.
Today's episode has been sponsored by Safe Storage of Prescription Drugs and Other Substances. If it can be harmful to a minor, please make sure it's safe and secure in your home.